Roxo Media House.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Purple Theory podcast in partnership with Frogs Today. My name is Grant McGalliard. I have alongside with me my co-host, my friend Parker Fleming. Parker, you have a lot of great things happening in your personal life, but I want to talk about the one great thing that I've been thinking about for 24 consecutive hours, and that is TCU beating Texas 17-10. You wanted to start big picture. Parker, my big picture is this real life? Is this happening?
Grant, LMBO, laughing my butt off. That's what's been happening the last 24 hours. I had a friend over. We tried to go to a sports bar, and that was dumb because I realized I'm in my 30s and I don't want to be in places with people anymore. And the town where I'm at is not necessarily a Big 12 town. And so getting some TV space was an issue. So we got home for kickoff and hanging out here and everything. And it was the most stressful TCU game that I have been involved in in a really long time, ever. Maybe the 2015 Oklahoma State game where like Doxson got hurt and TCU kind of came back and then lost it. I don't even know, but like this was an incredible game, just an absolutely incredible game.
I think it was so stressful because it was so weird, and like we'll get into how. I mean, obviously it was weird if you watched the game.
Did you hear anyone in the world project 27 total points for this game?
No. Everyone
expected this to be like 2007 Texas Tech, Texas, 7 overtime, whatever nonsense. And this is nothing that anyone could have predicted. To all the haters, Texas was, more or less full strength. TCU didn't have any breakdowns. Grant, TCU from half to half was actually pretty consistent on defense and played like the first full game of their entire season on defense. Just absolutely incredible.
I watch games without the announcers, and I want to get into this real quick because there's someone I need to thank and credit for this win. But once TCU won, I kind of turned it on just to hear like a little post game, and Max ran into Gary Patterson, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure. Actually, we don't have to, but I want to see if there was audio of it. And Kirk Herbstreit said something like, "Well, I actually respect TCU more after this game because this showed they can win in a different style, whatever." And Kirk's not a playoff member, and he's kind of maybe mad recently, but because college football national media is so stupid, like, winning a game 17-10, kind of ugly, somehow helps TCU. I don't really know how, but there you go. It's incredible. I need to thank CFB Nate Manzo, because
shout out to the guy. Real life IRL friend, not just an internet friend.
Yeah,
have met him multiple times in person. Great guy.
Yes, friend of the podcast. I was going to listen to Tyler Childers all through the game. And it was working great, but TCU wasn't scoring. And Nate said, well, try listening to someone else on offense and then listen to Childers on defense. So me, like a madman, was going back and forth between the Rolling Stones and Tyler Childers and just picking up where I left off on different albums every time the drive switched. And it worked. TCU won. So thank you, CFB Nate.
Heck yeah. That's great. I have an NCAA football because like a regulation, whatever football, because my in-laws who are listening to this always are very generous and like, hey, what do you want for Christmas? And I never know, like, I never want to ask for things. I'm like a grown man and it's like, hey, give me some hiking socks or something. And one year I was like, I don't know, I just want a football. And they gave me a football, like an NCAA football. So I had it, but I haven't picked it up in a while. So it was deflated. And Grant, it's the least that I've chewed my nails during a game because it was like a deflated football. So I could like squeeze it in stress but yeah, I mean, just again, we said this all season. It's amazing that we're in this position. I think we knew that this was going to be a decent team. Grant, I won't speak for you, but I'll say, just given the fact that they had 82% returning production this season, given the fact that they have and continue to have the third most talented roster in this league by a long shot. We knew that it was going to be good. And I said 8-4 was going to be an excellent season, which given what TCU has done would have been very solid. There would have been some competitive losses. 8-4 with a couple one-score losses was amazing. TCU's just won a couple of those games I expected they would lose. Like they've just been healthy and they've been on the right side of things. And this is beyond my wildest dreams of just speaking as a TCU fan of what I could have even convinced myself as a fanboy, like Homer, like if I went full Homer mode, I could never have even talked myself into this.
We said
even if they lose 3 games, even if they lose 4 games to end the season, even if they lose Baylor, Iowa State, Big 12 championship bowl game, this is amazing.
Yes. Now, we said before the season, we alluded to it again, I think last week, in our wildest dreams, we got them to 9-3 before the year. We're like, hey, okay, these are the games that, like, they may swing this game. They may swing that game. They're now 10-0. It doesn't make any sense. And it's weird, too, because now I'm at the point where, of course, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Baylor's this week. That game always fills me with dread. But I'm at the point now where I'm like, all right, let's just fast forward to the Big 12 championship game, because somehow this team has given me confidence. I didn't really see that coming at the beginning of the year. It's like, okay, who would you rather play in the Big 12 game? This is just such an amazing team. I'm running out of words, Parker.
Yeah. Well, and it's real. So, I think 5 teams, I think I texted this in the group chat, and I'm not going to remember offhand all 5 teams, but I think 5 teams in kind of the modern Big 12 since realignment started the season 9-0 straight up. All of them lost, 3 of them lost their 10th game. The only 2 Big 12 teams to start 10-0 are 2022 TCU and 2012 Kansas State. This is unprecedented. And yeah, sure, TCU played a very bad schedule. Like, that's fine. That's just how this works. But also, like, Oklahoma lost to Houston one year, and then they went 9-0 in their Big 12. Like, they could have gone if they would just have beaten Houston. But this is unprecedented, not just for TCU, but for anyone in the Big 12. Like, Baylor last year won, I think, 3 ranked games against ranked teams in the course of a 10-game regular season. Iowa State in 2020. I think Baylor won 4 in the course of a 10-game regular season.
Yeah.
Or 12-game regular season. Sorry. Iowa State won 3 in the course of a 10-game regular season in 2020. Like, if we're talking about that kind of fluky team who's second best in the Big 12 to Oklahoma because somebody has to win those games, like, TCU is outpacing all of those teams. I still think that, like, TCU's filling the role of someone has to win these games, but it just coincides that TCU has really good returning production and just has some weird, amazing mojo that's just kind of carrying them to 10 wins.
2 things. One, I think that Oklahoma loss to Houston was a psyop to get Texas to hire Tom Herman to kind of taint Texas a little bit more.
Okay, that's inspired, and I love that. Let's come back to that in the offseason.
Okay.
I'm censoring myself. I'm saying I agree with you. We're not going down the rabbit hole. Yes,
I know. But 2, the other thing, so yeah, 5 ranked wins, right? And I think 3 of those teams are no longer ranked, Texas, Kansas, and Oklahoma. Okay, A, you play who you beat who you play in front of you. That's not phrased right, but you know what I mean. And right. B, like, yeah, they have another loss on the record because TCU beat them. So they dropped down in the rankings. Like, that's how that works. Yeah. They're still good teams. Oklahoma, maybe not, but I don't know. TCU's beating who's in front of them, and they're 10-0. Is there anything else big picture before we want to dive in? Because there's so many statistical layers to this game that are incredible.
Yes. Okay. So before we even do like first principles or whatever, can we just do vibes?
Yeah.
We haven't had a TCU defense game. We haven't had one.
No.
Grant, it was the Shad, MF, and Banks game. That is amazing. I think I'm getting too granular. It's fine. We'll talk about it. I think Johnny Hodges lost his job, dude.
D. Winters might have lost his job, but yeah.
Well, the D. Winters came in and they shifted Hodges out. But yes, but Shad Banks came in and was amazing. We'll talk about it specifically. TCU went toe-to-toe with an extremely talented offense and just absolutely stifled them. In incredible fashion. Texas has scored 10 points or fewer just twice since 2019, I think, in 4 seasons.
I just want to give a shout out to J. Key at of a Mesozoic Mind. Shad Banks snap count, as many as he effing wants. Which is, I think, perfect. This is the Shad Banks game, and it was also the Dylan Horton game, which we'll get to. But there were so many outstanding performances on this defensive side, and from the opening jump, I mean, TCU easily could have fallen behind 14-0, 17-0 in this game because the offense kept shooting itself in the foot, and every single time the defense responded and just said, "No, they're not going anywhere." Bijan Robinson had 29 yards. Like, that's not even getting into first principles. That's a vibe in and of itself.
Alabama allowed 2.7 yards per carry and a touchdown to Bijan Robinson. TCU allowed 2.4 and no touchdowns. This is 12 carries. I think 12 carries. I tweeted about this. Someone check me. 12 carries is the lowest that Bijan Robinson had since the second lowest in his career at Texas in a game. The only other low was the 2020 Alamo Bowl, where he averaged 18.5 yards per carry. So he was running up and down the field multiple times, so they didn't run him a lot. Like, Texas could not get the run game going, and they did not trust it. They were scared of TCU's defensive front. Can we just talk about the defense? Can we just segue into there, or should we do the first
please.
principles for it?
No.
Okay.
Let's do that. Go ahead.
Here's what's amazing. TCU, Grant, was able to stack the box against the run and still defend. Abe Kamara played 19 snaps. That's not a lot. He played almost none. And TCU, with Bradford and with Clark and with Banks, was able to play this like thick kind of back defense and stop the run, scare Texas off the run, and say, hey, Quinn Ewers is going to have to beat us by being accurate. Grant, guess what?
He wasn't.
Quinn Ewers is not. He's raw. He's raw. He's unpolished.
Sure. Yeah, I think he missed his first 7 throws. And if you look, like, the statistics aren't even that. I'm trying to look at, tackles. Johnny Hodges had 8 tackles. Mark Perry had 5. Again, that's coming out of run support. Nook Bradford had 5. And look, I mentioned Dylan Horton. He's only credited with 3 tackles and a sack, but Parker, he was swallowing people on the right side of that line. They needed 1 or 2 guys to block him at every single, almost every single play. And when he wasn't making tackles, he was crashing and forcing Bijan outside or forcing Quinn Ewers to scramble. He played absolutely outstanding on only 49 snaps. And I still think he was the defensive player of the game. He was unbelievable. It's the best game I've ever seen him play.
And Grant, he's kind of been ramping up to this. I think let's appreciate Dylan Horton. One, Dylan Horton at New Mexico, I think, is where he started. Yes.
Yeah.
2 seasons in New Mexico. Grant, he was like an all-stater as a safety. Over the course of his first 2 years at New Mexico, he gains like 50 pounds and moves from safety to linebacker to edge rusher.
I've gained 50 pounds in 2 years before, but I didn't wind up playing college football afterwards.
Yeah. Talk about your late bloomer there. And so we look at this. I'm just going to use pressures as kind of the thing that he's ramped up against is like,
sure.
Oklahoma State 6, Kansas State 3, West Virginia 5, Texas Tech 3, Texas he had 2. But all that to say is like those games of Oklahoma State, Kansas State, West Virginia, Texas Tech, amidst all the chaos, he was commanding attention and putting that on tape to the point where Texas had to deal with it. Texas had to account for Dylan Horton, and that is huge. We've talked about kind of the unsung hero of Terrell Cooper just being like boringly good, kind of clogging things up and being disruptive. Dylan Horton has been so aggressively good that Texas had to say, we've got to get out of your way. And he still had a great game. Just incredible. Yeah.
And I should also give some love on the back end as well. And we could talk about Chad Banks again. We can talk about, the linebacking crew. Basically did not miss a step with D Winters going out in the first half. Didn't even notice it. And that's not an insult to D Winters. That is a credit to a linebacking core that we have said has been not very deep and has run into a lot of issues over the course of the season. And they bowed their necks and stepped the hell up. 2 guys, Trey Hodges-Tomlinson and Bud Clark on the back end. Got to give credit. Trey was targeted 8 times. He gave up 1 catch. And he had a pretty blatant pass interference that was actually kind of funny. But besides that, he did a great job against Xavier Worthy. And Bud Clark made some acrobatic ass pass breakups. He was ass breakups. He was flying all over the field.
Okay. So yes, I would go there. Xavier Worthy was targeted 13 times and he caught 4 of them. Grant, he only dropped 1. 5 of his 14 targets were contested. They were just throwing it and hoping something happened. TC was all over him. Grant, I retweeted this from our friend Cody Alexander, Coach A. Josh Newton had maybe the best defensive game of any TCU player in recent memory. He had a series where he went toe-to-toe with Xavier Worthy. And I'm talking, this is what high school coaches are showing guys to be like, this, if you work hard and you do everything perfectly, maybe you'll have a rep like this once in your career, where he was just all in Xavier Worthy's grip. Like absolutely incredible from Newton as well on coverage there. Like he was what? I'm so excited about that.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you
4
for saying
targets,
that.
no receptions.
Yeah, thank you for saying that because he was so good, and there are so many people on this defense that I wanted to shout out that his name completely slipped my mind. I know exactly what series you're talking about. It was magical. Like you said, 4 targets, 0 receptions. I don't know what more you want from a cornerback than that.
Yep. And the one critique I had of the defense, so we're going to do this inverse. We're going to talk about the defense, and then we're going to talk about the first principles. That's fine. Was Johnny Hodges versus Jatavian Sanders, like 3 times.
Not good.
It was not good early. You were like, oh man, Sanders dropped it. One time, I don't think he expected to get the ball. Another time, he caught it and was tackled behind the line of scrimmage. Another time, he ball kind of was not placed well. TCU got away from that very quickly because they saw like Texas was backed up on their own 1 or whatever and threw a seam route. They ran the Pro Wells play. And Sanders just dropped it. Hodges could not keep up with him. And they said, hey, like Mark Perry, you gotta go get him, dude.
Next man up,
figure it out. And so they moved around and were able to do that. Abe had a target where he defended Jasavian Sanders as well. And Mark Perry had 2. They moved off of that, which is just warms my heart that TCU was not only so good from the beginning, that they were so flexible. When Texas came out and completely changed their formation in the second half, they went bunch and started doing all weird sorts of stuff, tried to change it, and they got that one scoring drive. And TCU was so good, just in so many different ways on defense. This felt like something we hadn't seen from this iteration of the TCU team.
Yeah, and I was about to say TCU got lucky because Ewers missed some throws. I think TCU got into Ewers' head, which is a skill. I mean, they were in his kitchen from the opening jump. His receivers were covered. The Bijan was wide open on a wheel route, and Texas probably should have scored a touchdown, but Ewers was pressured, and he threw it underneath instead because he wasn't used to having that. It was just TCU did everything right. Do you want to talk about first principles?
They really did. Let's read some stats and we'll talk about the offense. Well, yeah, golly, I'm so excited about this defense.
I know.
TCU, I'll read the defensive ones first. TCU held Texas to negative 0.51 EPA per play. That's as bad as anybody's played all season. Obviously, they only scored 3 points, 3 scoring opportunities. Texas had a 28% success rate, 3.5 yards per play, negative 0.48 yards per EPA per dropback, and negative 0.57 EPA per rush. TCU just absolutely decimated this Texas offense just in every way. On the other side of the ball, TCU negative 0.16 EPA per play, not very good. 34% success rate, not very good. 4.79 yards per play, not great. Negative 0.35 EPA per dropback. A lot of that has to do with pressure. We'll talk about that. And then 0.001 EPA per rush, which is okay. And basically is Kendre Miller got a big run. Like that turned out to be the difference, given that TCU dropped. I mean, some of that EPA per dropback is probably calling the Max Duggan fumble a pass. The Kendre Miller fumble. Sorry, it was the Kendre Miller fumble. He reached for it. But TCU's run game was able to be just on schedule and have an explosive play.
So can we talk running backs first? I know we normally do Max or whatever.
No, that's great. Let's talk running back because they mattered. I mean, they won this game.
Oh my God, Parker. Kendre Miller, sure, okay, fumbles, his fault, whatever. Had so much dog in him during this game. He refused to be tackled. It wasn't even a run. The screen pass right in the middle of the field, that kind of middle screen where he broke 4 different tackles to get 11 yards and fought and clawed and dove and spun his way into a first down. He averaged 2.57 yards after contact, 6.6 yards per attempt on 21 rushes for 138 yards. Again, a large part of that is a 75-yard run. Don't care he got those 75 yards, so it was explosive, whatever, it worked. When Kendre went out, again, Amari DiMercato on that last drive just iced the game for TCU. That 3rd and 5 pass to Quentin Johnston obviously was clutch, but DiMercato ran the ball 4 or 5 consecutive times. 4.73 yards after contact for Amari DiMercato, 5.9 yards per rush, and 3 first downs. Just an incredible game by TCU running backs, fighting through every single tackle.
Yeah. And Quentin Johnston got the one on 3rd and 4 to extend it, but DiMercato got the 3rd and 2 to end the game. Absolutely changed it there. A great rushing effort. Grant, really bad in the first half. I think, negative yardage in the first half for TCU. And the problem there kind of schematically was that Texas, like we said, has 6 NFL guys on that defensive line.
Right.
And they were just moving them around, just absolutely harassing kind of the weaker points there. There were times where a couple offensive linemen looked lost. TCU couldn't run inside zone at all. In the second half, TCU got away from kind of the screens and inside zone typical air raid and said we need to extend them a little bit, and some like depth issues. I think not necessarily they're not deep, just like 300-pound guys who keep moving around the line are going to get tired. And TCU's offensive line was saying like, hey, we're going to clip this up a little bit. We're not going to do as many weird, watching like SMU's film last year, TCU always does like GT pull protection on a pass. And it was like, nope, you can't get there. You can't get there against these guys. That's not going to happen. TCU really simplified against the offensive line and we're able to really, really literally run away with this game with some well-timed passes. It's funny because this offense feels like exactly what TCU was trying to do like the last couple of years and could never implement because the offensive line was so bad and because they were so scared of the middle of the field. But it was, hey, we're going to run until you move, and then we're going to take advantage over the top. I mean, if you look at, if I can segue,
Please.
Like Max averaged 4.3 yards per attempt.
Not good.
That's not great. 4.3 average depth of target. He was just getting the ball out, trying to survive.
Yes. So on that note, so this amazes me. Okay, so Max's average time to throw was 2.21. Okay, not a lot of time. Under pressure, it was 3.22. When the pocket was kept clean, he got the ball out in 1.75 seconds. So part of that, there were some screenplays, right? But I liked how TCU adjusted in the second half and threw a lot of, hey, run 5 yards, turn around, Max is going to throw it to you, because that's all the time we have.
But and that's been our best play. Like Quentin Johnston with his back to the defense has been the best.
But it was QJ. It was QJ. It was Tay Barber. I think Jordan Wiley caught one. It was Darius Davis. They all kind of just had a little curl. It's like, hey, here's 7 yards in a game where 7 yards is really hard to come by. Yeah. And I was really happy with that adjustment.
Can I say I loved the tight ends just being involved generally? You mentioned Wiley there.
Yeah.
In terms of receiving, Wiley had one really clutch. And Spivey had one really clutch one. Both of those were kind of shit is hitting the fan receptions. Yes. But Wiley was blocking a lot, which is not ideal, but like, hey, if you're going to be in the game, we can do that. That's fine. The other side, the other thing that I think is really interesting is this sequence kind of at the end of the first half. It's 3rd and 11 and it's TCU's field goal drive. It's 3rd and 11 and Texas gets that delay of game penalty because Coburn was yelling at the offensive lineman, which I think is ticky-tacky and weird, but it's against the rules. Like that's how it's written.
Sure.
And Duggan went Barber for 8 yards for the first down, Barber for 2 yards. And like just that back-to-back of, oh my gosh, we have to get a 3rd and 6, find Tay Barber. I love the fact that Max Duggan and Tay Barber is this so solid. Like that's not going to be your big upside play normally. That's going to be when Max is like, I have to get the yards here. I'm going to Tay. And I think that Tay Barber is so reliable there in that kind of role where it's like, hey, Davis and Johnston are going to get the flashier plays. We're going to scheme Wiley open. But if we need the ball and we need a possession receiver, we trust Max to find Tay Barber.
Yeah, and I'm going to dump on QJ before praising him, but like QJ had a really bad drop that would have been really nice to have. We've said before,
has a hands problem.
He
it's
does.
Just real.
I
think it's fixable. Yeah, go ahead.
It's fixable. Jamie has a really good analysis of it's the way he holds his hands. Like instead of palms up, it's like palms down, where he's going to bring it into his body and run instead of putting his hands out. I need to watch more tape to figure that out. This is not the dump on Quentin Johnston, who I think is an outstanding receiver that will play in the NFL and is he is the reason TCU has won many a game this year. But Tay Barber is the possession guy that TCU needs for sure. And Savion Williams caught one of those balls too. He also has a little bit of a hands problem. There was some interesting play calling, a lot of kind of behind the line of scrimmage passes and kind of pop passes and reverses that I didn't particularly like, but that's not here nor there.
I think that so last week we talked about them being scared of Tyree Wilson for Texas Tech and kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. I think that they said, we're not going to do that. Like we're going to try and attack the edges and get out. And then that Texas pass rush and the way that Texas was pushing against the kind of complicated pressures that or complicated protections TCU was running, really, really kind of tightened the pass game. I think in the second half, TCU simplified a bunch, and that helped them, one, get the run game going, to then be able to go over the top. I mean, TCU scored a touchdown on a play that Texas just didn't know how to cover. They just blew it. I mean, it wasn't any feat of athleticism. Max closed his eyes and threw the ball. And if you watch it, Quentin Johnston jumped up. I think he assumed that someone was like,
he said that in the post game. He said in the post game, he goes, I thought someone was behind me. So I jumped to try to protect myself. And then there's just nobody there. Can I make one more point real quick too on the screens?
Please.
I think they got away from it a little bit in the second half too, because Texas did a really good job of blowing up those screens on the outside and blowing through wide receiver blocking. TCU's, I mean, their wide receivers aren't afraid to block. I've always been pretty impressed by their, like, all these guys' willingness to lay their body out. Texas was just blowing them up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Splitting two guys. I mean, just keyed in. TCU
yeah.
ran screens on 31.4% of passes, 1.8 yards per play there. I think 0 first downs. I'm going to assume 0 first downs. Oh,
yeah,
2 first downs. Okay,
oh,
so the rest of them were really bad because two of them
one
were first
of them was the middle screen to Kendra Miller. So yeah.
Which I loved. I thought that was great. It was like, yes, obviously throw the screen, and it worked out pretty well. The other thing I'll note, TCU historically has been running like 30% play action, 17.1. Just could not do it with this defensive line. Wasn't worth it at all. They also stopped running the zone read. They just started running inside zone. Because it wasn't that Duggan was making bad reads, although I think a couple times he was just like, this guy's going to hit both of us regardless. What are we doing? They could not really, they were not fooling anyone with the inside read or the zone read.
He kept it in I think the fourth quarter. He had a good zone read and I think picked up a first down. But yeah, for the most part, they were just like, listen, we don't have time to do this ticky-tacky stuff.
He only attempted 2 passes, 20. He attempted 5 passes, 10 or more yards downfield.
He just didn't have the time.
Didn't have the time. Absolutely. This was, again, this is what we wanted to see out of TCU like the last 3 years when the offense has been terrible and been like, hey, how do we adjust so we can get the ball out and make it happen? And they couldn't do that for one reason or another.
I'm going to dunk on one Texas player, and I think you know who it's going to be. QJ ran a brilliant route right behind DeMarvion Overshown in the first quarter. I think that set up the field goal. Maybe it was the field goal that got blocked, and Overshown was just completely lost in space.
Yeah.
And just it was really, I enjoyed that immensely.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go negative for just a second, but I'm not going to go specific. I think TCU has an eco-terrorist on the offensive line. It's just so frustrating. Like, look, okay, I know you know who this player is, not the standpoint of like putting him on blast. I'm just saying this guy has been underdeveloped. It's not his fault. I don't want to go Robin Williams here. It's not your fault. You've just been coached so poorly for 4 years, and you're just consistently in positions where you're going to do dumb things. And like that. I mean,
the second play of the game.
Yes. Yeah. And he got bailed out with the Keandre Coburn inciting or whatever. Well, no, hands in the face, but also the
the delay game?
The defensive, delay a game penalty. I couldn't figure out what it was. Inciting violence is what I was trying to say. That's not right at all.
Jeez.
Because he false started on that.
He sure did.
And he false started because someone yelled go, and he was like, I'm gonna go. But yeah, man, it's not great.
Well, to be it's not good. But to be fair,
working with it.
Yeah, the entire offensive line had a bad night.
Absolutely.
And that's partially due to Texas being, like you said, 6 NFL guys up front, and partially due to there's a lot of problems that are still on the offensive line. The right guard spot needs to be shored up. I don't think either one of the guys that we play cover themselves with glory.
No, it's a bad thing that Lands and Harris split the 70 snaps. That's not good. Somebody has to take that position.
Yeah, and then like Lands, and I don't want to call out a specific guy, but like there was one play where he blocked nobody and was searching for someone to block. I'm like, there's 3 guys moving past you. Pick one and hit somebody.
He had a 47.9 grade. And look, he's a walkout. Like, again, we're not bearing people
balls
and strikes. Like, he had a bad night. That's fine. And TC won, so it's okay. But just generally not good. And I think that a lot of it that was frustrating to me early on is exactly what you pointed out there, is it was confusion among the offensive line.
Yes.
And that is not something we've seen. That's something we're used to from TCU the last couple of years. But this season, we've been like, oh, you got beat. Not like, dude, do you know what you're doing? And that's what we felt like, because Texas was running all these pressures and TCU was doing these really complicated things as well.
Yeah, right. You're right. And I think simplifying, as you said, in the second half helped because they didn't have to run these complicated pressures. There's man in front of you, hit man, and it worked out better. I will say, I was going to give credit, and this is PFF grade, so take for what you will. Steve had a pretty good night. 71 offensive rating, 69 pass or run block, 81 pass block. He was fine.
This is one where heuristics of watching it twice kind of lined up with the PFF grades pretty well. Like Alana Lee, 41.3, pretty bad night. Steve didn't really get challenged. Brandon Coleman didn't really get challenged. Steve had 81.4. Brandon Coleman had 75.8. Coker, 65.9 pass grade. John Lance, 47.9. He was getting picked on. He and Alana Lee were really getting picked on just because, again, those are the guys that are moving a lot in protection and that shows. We're bordering on the negative here, Grant. I say, like, yes, TCU won. That's great. I had this thought today. I feel like we always kind of go, like, I feel like this season I've been like, hey, this was better than you thought. Actually, this wasn't that bad. Or, hey, this is worse than you thought. And the reason we're on the margin so much there is I think that, like, it's super informative to say, hey, if you're feeling super great about this game, what are some things to kind of check that and say, what do we learn about this team this game? And I think a lot of the times it was like when TCU gets a win and we're all feeling good, pointing out, hey, actually, these things weren't great is kind of how we understand, hey, what do we expect next game? So I don't mean to pick on these offensive linemen and say, like, oh, they're doing bad, but it is to say, like, hey, Texas showed pretty effectively that with some stunts and some athletes, you could be really disruptive on the offensive line. And TCU put on film how they adjust to that.
Yeah.
Right for Baylor next week, who has a very good and very deep defensive line, even with their flaws. So that's just something to keep in mind. The reason I'm harping on this is because we're playing Baylor next week and they have a great defensive line, and TCU has struggled with 3 really, really tough defensive lines, or 2, and we'll play the 3rd.
Yeah, and this is kind of another good big picture point too. But I was talking with some friends in the group chat, and they're like, what's the best quarterback TCU's played this year? I promise there's a point at the end of this rainbow. I was like, well, Spencer Sanders was kind of hurt. Will Howard came in, he wasn't expected to play, but he's looked good since. Tanner Mordecai was shaky early, whatever. And I think we're so used to kind of not knowing how to trust a TCU team over the last few years, where you're always kind of looking for excuses to be like, well, someone was hurt, or, well, whatever. At some point when you're 10-0, you got to say, hey, maybe TCU is just making quarterbacks have some rough days. And maybe, the offensive line isn't great, but TCU finds a way to win with it. This is a positive thought and saying, it's okay to look for flaws, but at the end of the day, this is still like a really good football team. And
can I say, there's been some qualms about quarterback injury, although I think they're dumb because 3 of those quarterbacks were injured before the games, whatever. But teams are running their quarterbacks a lot against TCU because they're trying to conjure up offense and they're trying to do things. And like when you run your quarterback into the ground, they're more likely to get hurt. Like that's just a reality. That's something we're facing with TCU as well, as like the style of play that TCU has. They're trying to do so many different things against that to kind of say we've got to keep the pace with the offense, that they're putting their quarterbacks in vulnerable positions. I'm not saying they asked for it or whatever. You're right. But just saying generally, if your quarterback has to be more mobile, that means your offense is probably not working as intended. And that also means that your offense is more likely to result in your quarterback getting hit, which is directly correlated to injuries.
Yeah. And we're going back to defense again, but just Quinn Ewers' stat line, 17 to 39, 171 yards and a pick.
Dude.
He was seeing ghosts. In
I don't want to do the same bit that I do about everything, but Quinn Ewers' 2022 season supposes that he cannot hit an open receiver. And I just want you to think about Texas if he can. Like,
oh, yeah.
I mean, they had 3 drops and he missed. I want to see his accuracy. So his completion was 42.5. His adjusted completion was only 50%. Like he just threw some bad balls to guys who would have scored if they were open. The one, I think it was Kamara fell down and Ewers went underneath to the tight end, looking the same vector of like sight, the same.
That was the Bijan wheel route.
Yeah. And he just didn't see it in the end zone. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's Quinn Ewers is a freshman. It's his first year at least playing college football. He'll get better.
Well, hey, maybe don't take a whole year off of football, man, to go get NIL money, and maybe you won't be rusty. I hated that on the broadcast. I got so annoyed by that because they were like, well, he's been out of football. And I was like, yeah, dude, he reclassified and didn't play his senior year, went to Ohio State so he could get NIL money. I don't feel bad about him being rusty. Like, that's his fault.
Yeah. I mean, get the bag. Don't get me wrong. But
on this episode of the Purple Theory podcast, Parker yells at a
19-year-old for
rethink your choices, you mullet-wearing young man.
Rethink the facial hair. I'll say that. It is a tough look.
The Stats and Wife did have some comments about like, I know what look he's going for, but man, he is not pulling it off at all.
Is there anything else? I'm trying to think. Griffin Kell, that kick was blocked. I'm not too concerned about that. Um,
Did
all
you
in all,
did you
man,
throw up when the Max Kendre transfer fumbled and Texas caught the ball? I was close to it, man.
no, weirdly, I was fine. Because Texas offense had done nothing.
Yeah.
I was weirdly okay with it.
Yeah, I think so. I think I was going through the stats. I don't remember what I tweeted out. Texas ran like 61 plays, and only seven of those went for 10 or more yards. Only
Yeah,
seven.
that
Like they
sounds
were
right.
not explosive at all. Grant, we should just say this out loud on the podcast. They were 1 for 13 on early downs. On third downs. 1 for
Yeah.
13 on third downs. Listen to this. This is insane. Texas.
What was their average
Yeah.
distance?
So including the fourth down conversion, because you give them credit for the late
Uh-huh.
downs, Texas was 15.4% late down success against TCU. In coming into the game, Texas averaged a 43.8% success rate on third and fourth downs. Now, that's not just because TCU's third down defense was good, although we've seen that TCU in third and long situations has been bad.
Yeah.
That's because TCU was so good on early downs. Texas was in really bad late down situations, and they couldn't just ride someone and get out of it. Yeah, I mean, just absolutely Herculean effort by this TCU defense. I think they held Texas to just pennies on the dollar of their averages for everything all season.
What was their average down or distance to go on third down? Do you have that?
I don't know if hold on. I can.
That's fine. I was just curious.
I don't have that offhand. So
It's fine. It's all good. I was just curious. But okay, one more thing. Just now that we're picking nits or just kind of talking about the game a little bit, I thought TCU should have, and I guess this goes back to like simplifying and saying, okay, we're going to find running plays that work. I would have liked TCU to kind of run Kendre more in the first half because the passing game wasn't working, and I just would have liked to have seen that. I don't know if you had a different read on it, but
yeah, I think that it's not like they could have done anything. I don't know. They just couldn't do anything in the first half.
Yeah.
Like the offensive line was so confused and so playing just kind of over ahead of their skis. Like I almost think that's immaterial. I think that I agree. Hey, when stuff's bad, go to the fundamentals. But TCU, I mean, couldn't even run a screen, man. Like was just, it was really bad. But so I empathize with that. But I do think that there's mitigating circumstances.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I tweeted that too. Like, I don't, or maybe I typed it out and deleted it. I don't know what TCU needed to do to adjust at halftime while I was sitting there on my couch, but I know whatever they were doing wasn't it. So I was just trying to find different avenues of, hey, Kendre Miller is like maybe the best running back in the conference, which I thought was cool. After the game, he got asked like, hey, are you the best running back in the Big 12? And he goes, yes.
Dude, if you can't believe that right now at 10-0 and leading, whatever, man, that's great.
That's freaking awesome.
I will say though, just tilting at windmills for a minute, the run the ball Garrett Riley meme that's kind of popped up. The decisive play was TCU completed a pass to Quentin Johnston. Like, I mean, you need to run the ball, yes, but also like you've got to do with the down and distance thing. I think that the biggest thing that would ease a ton of people's anxiety when they're watching a game is before the snap, count how many linemen and linebackers are like between the tackles and 5 yards. We'll call that the box, right? If there are 7 guys there and there's only 5 blockers, no, Garrett Riley, don't run the ball. Do something else. And so if you just start counting the number of guys in the box as a habit pre-snap, that's going to tell you a lot about should I be mad about this.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I guess what it boils down to is TCU's 3 huge stars on offense, Duggan, Kendre, and Quentin. Rely on them. That's what I'm saying. That's all.
Well, and they have, I mean, and I feel like they're surprisingly deep kind of outside that, but they really can't. I mean, they didn't do it this game. They didn't get everybody in concert, but I'm saying when it mattered, they said, we're going to run Kendre. We're going to find Quentin for this third down. Like, absolutely. They just trusted the guys.
Yeah. And again, that's not sliding Darius or Tay. It's just, those are your 3 studs, Go to
shout out to, speaking of studs and not studs, not that Jordan Whittington is bad by any stretch, but he was Texas's 3rd, maybe 4th option. And he, had 6 receptions, only 1 behind Jatavian Sanders, averaged 13.0. One of those was 2 of those was screens where TCU just could not get him. And so that's not great. But he was pretty productive when Texas couldn't find anything else.
Whittington, I think, had one of the greatest Texas high school football championship game performances of all time. I brought that up like 8 different times in this podcast, but I will always be a Jordan Whittington like stan because he's just a stud. I think he's at Aquero.
We're turning into Buddy Garrity because we're like, man, I remember that guy in high school. That guy could really sling.
Man,
it, you know?
if we could just run the daggum ball, get him.
Yost, don't you bench my son? Sorry, I'm confusing metaphors there, but I was referencing that guy as well. I did have so we want to do a whip round. I know we're going. I set a timer.
No, listen, I could talk about this game for forever.
I did have Throwback Frog got on the DMs and asked a couple questions, and I thought some of them were good. Sure, so I was gonna just throw them there. He asked about, are the constant return attempts on punts and kickoffs something that's schemed by the coaches, or is that if you see it, go for it by the player? So the question is, why does TCU keep refusing to fair catch and bringing the ball not to the 25?
I think it's
special teams.
I mean, I think punts I get because TCU's. I mean, they've returned 3 punts for touchdowns this year. Darius is a good punt return man. I think there's more variance in punt coverage, than there is in kickoff return coverage,
especially in plus territory. Like if you're at the 44, you know, if you're catching at the 44, I'm almost like, dude, don't fair catch it because if you fumble, like they're still in their own territory, whatever.
Yeah,
and like, I get that. But
it's easier to break, but kickoff for sure. Just wave your hand and take it at the 25.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if that's Tom Hall saying like, hey, we think variance there is positive, so we're willing to stomach it. I think it's a negative EV calculation.
This is my dumb caveman brain. The only exception I'll make is for the first kickoff of the game. Because I think it's super sick when you start with the kickoff return.
Because it's vibes. Yeah. Just
it's vibes. That is vibes. Everything else, wave your hand, take it at the 25.
Okay, I'm just reading all 3 of these at the same time. He asked, which team would you rather play in round 1 of the playoffs and why? I don't care. I want to be Baylor. I don't even want to talk about it. I want to be Baylor. That's what I'm focused on. I think that this isn't, I'm not picking on him. Sorry, I was trying to say dunking and picking. I'm not picking on him. I'm saying I think that all of TCU Twitter can take a lesson from Coach Dykes' example and say, we enjoyed it. We're on to the next one. We're staying humble. We want to be 1-0. That's very much been their message. Let's continue that.
Yep.
Third one was asking about Max having another year of eligibility, or will we see Chandler or Jackson next season? Do you have a thought about Max Duggan?
I don't know if his stock's going to get higher, and I don't know what he wants out of life.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is I don't think his stock's going to get higher. If he wants to try to take a crack at the NFL, land on a roster, I think you go after this season.
Is it more likely that Max Duggan is TCU's starting quarterback next year, or neither of Chandler Morris and Sam Jackson is TCU's starting quarterback next year? So Max or an outsider, which is more likely, Max or an outsider?
If you held a gun to my head, outsider.
I think that one, you got to bring somebody in. That you don't have the depth that you need right now.
Yeah.
2, I think it is evident that Dykes and Riley don't love their quarterback room right now, which is like such a privileged thing to say, being 10-0 or whatever. But I think that they want to try something else there. There's an offseason conversation to be had about whether Garrett Riley is still wearing purple next year. I've heard like Notre Dame is calling him. I can't verify that. Just people who are in the know at Notre Dame are being like, hey, his name is on a list. So we'll see what happens with that generally, but that's for the offseason.
Garrett Riley at Notre Dame would be weird because Notre Dame has never run an offense I would consider fun or inventive or aggressive.
Yeah.
That would be very interesting. You know what?
Is it more likely that Max Duggan or an outsider is Notre Dame's quarterback next year? I just wanted to communicate the level of seriousness that I was taking.
Well, I don't know why we're talking about this because, Max Duggan's Heisman campaign probably died on Saturday, but TCU's 10-0, so he's my quarterback, and that's all.
Oh, okay. So CJ Stroud has to throw the ball in the rain a little bit and totally boots it, and Max Duggan doesn't get the same generosity for playing on the road in a game.
It's Stetson Bennett. It's fun.
It is going to be Stetson Bennett. Let's do a whip round.
Okay, let's do a whip round. Let me pull it up.
I should have done that before. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Kansas State continues to be really good, which we've said before. Will Howard turns out to be a dog.
Ass. Oh my God.
31-3 Kansas State over Baylor.
They could have
It
scored
was
more, dude.
absolutely they could have. Will Howard was 19 and 27 for 196 yards and 3 touchdowns. Blake Shapen threw 2 picks.
Blake Shapen threw 38 passes and had a QBR of 30.6.
It's not ideal. Deuce Vaughn was 25 carries, 106 yards. Yeah, Kansas State, like you said, whipped that ass. That's the best way to describe it.
Can I toot my own horn?
Sure.
One, Parker's previews this week, 4-0. Picked 4. It never happens. That was great. That was wonderful. One of those games was this game, and I said it Wednesday on the podcast. Baylor's win against Oklahoma was not impressive at all. Baylor's win against Oklahoma was also like, oh, this is actually really bad. And so that's one of the times where Will actually panned out pretty well because they did not do well against a bad opponent. They should have beat by a lot and have everything work in their favor. And then Kansas State comes in and just pantses them. I mean, Will Howard only had 196 total yards.
Yeah.
Like, they just ran over him.
Hey, speaking of a bad opponent, West Virginia 23, Oklahoma 20. Neil Brown refuses to do what everyone at West Virginia wants him to do, which is lose.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. I watched a good bit of this game. Shout out to Garrett Green at West Virginia kind of coming in and kind of leading them down the field to victory there. He was pumped up.
Not a good quarterback, but is a very good improviser. Their best plays were like Garrett Green thought the play was something entirely different than it was, and then he just took off running, and those were their best plays.
Yeah. It's just a really weird game. Oklahoma's got some demons.
They are down bad. I'm going to use a technical term there.
Very, very bad. What are they? 5 wins, 5-5. Who do they have next? They have Bedlam and then Texas Tech. Texas Tech's going to be for bowl eligibility.
Man, Oklahoma missing a bowl would be rough. Because I also don't think so. I think that like it was, if Dylan Gabriel was out substantially, this is like a 5-7 team. But this is not Dylan Gabriel. Like they were going to lose TCU and Texas regardless. Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of Texas Tech, 43-28 over Kansas. Texas Tech plays. Who do they play next? Because I literally think that game against Oklahoma, both teams would try to they play Iowa State, so there's a chance. But Tyler Shuck, it was his turn at quarterback roulette. 20-33, 246 yards and a touchdown. They just
and Donovan run. Smith. Who knew that Tyler Shuck could run 18 consecutive yards without being tackled?
This is news to me. Donovan Smith also had a running touchdown because Joey McGuire refused. Did he? Oh, I think I sent you that tweet, or I sent someone that tweet. The Joey McGuire quarterback strategy. Let me find it.
Yeah, so he basically said, like, if Donovan Smith gets a first down, they're going to run tempo and keep him in there.
He'll be if Donovan Smith comes in like usual on, say, 3rd and 2 and gets, or 3rd and 2 and gets a first down, he'll remain in for the rest of the series.
Yeah, sure. Joey McGuire just doesn't know what he has at quarterback at any position, and he just doesn't know what he has. Yep, they're going week to week, which is very appropriate of like Lubbock and Cowboys. And look, man, we got to get the cattle from point A to point B, and I can't think about point B to point C because they're very much living in the moment right now.
Oklahoma State 20, Iowa State 14. Iowa State, not a good football team.
Oklahoma State was down. I counted. They were down like 14 starters. Like legitimately. Spencer Sanders came in and they probably gave him a shot of Novocaine at halftime to make him be able to play. But I mean, the fact that Iowa State can't beat this Oklahoma State team is absurd. This is
Gunnar Gundy started this game.
Do you know about have I talked about this before, like revealed preference theory? Very, very briefly. Rain me in. Okay. The eye roll that Grant just gave me would stop a lesser man from continuing here. But it's like, hey, if there's A, B, and C, and you choose B, that means that you prefer B to A and C, right? Like because you didn't make an ordering or whatever. Okay, revealed preference theory. Matt Campbell did not take another job outside of Iowa State. That tells me a lot about what other programs and other college football people think about Matt Campbell relative to kind of the media hype that he got. Because we're seeing without Purdy and without Breece Hall, there's not a lot here to be excited about the future. Like it's a new team and they're turning over and we knew they were going to be bad. I'm saying, what are the blocks that they're building on, dude? It is not Hunter Deckers.
Yeah. And without a lot of guys on defense too, that have been a stalwart at that program for the last few years too, that have gone on and done other things. And he's coaching himself out of the Nebraska job. He's probably coaching himself out of some other jobs this season. It's very interesting. Okay, let's go national a little bit. Alabama 30, Ole Miss 24. Watched a large portion of this game as well. Bama's just good enough. Well, Bryce Young's just good enough to keep Bama alive, basically.
I wouldn't even blitz Bryce Young. I would not even pressure him. I would play total contain and be like, dude, I'm gonna drop 9, because when he gets pressured, he just makes things happen, man.
Yeah, and two, like his receivers are not as good as Alabama receivers have been in the past. So if you drop 9, like no one's going to break open on you.
Yeah.
And he's going to have to make which he can make plays with his feet, but he's not as. UCF 38, Tulane 31. This was an upset in the rankings. That's a shame. I was really rooting for Tulane to kind of get that G5 bid, but I don't know who's going to get.
I mean, they had like a sequence where it was like John Reese Plumlee ran for a first down, but then he fumbled, but then they overturned the fumble. And then Tulane dropped an interception, and then UCF scored. Like they just had a couple oh man, when it rains, it pours kind of breaks there.
Washington 37, Oregon 34. Goodbye Pac-12 once again. This looked like a really fun game. It was happening at the same time as TCU Texas. I did not watch a minute of it.
No, I had it up on the phone just to follow a little bit because I picked Oregon because I trusted them because I'm a moron. And they could not get a stop. That secondary is so bad. And Washington was able to score touchdowns where like UCLA, for instance, was only able to score field goals against Oregon. That was the difference.
Speaking of UCLA, lost 34-28 to Arizona. UCLA, it's a land of contrasts. I do not get that program at all. Zach Charbonnet is really good. Besides that,
Can I interest you in a one-loss Lincoln Riley going to the playoff and losing the first round by 40? Because
that sounds familiar.
Getting close. It's getting close.
That sounds awfully familiar.
Oklahoma fans will take solace in the fact that they at least won the conference championship. Wait a minute.
North Carolina 36, Wake 34. This is also happening at the same time as TCU Texas. For the first time all season, Carolina's defense made stops when they had to.
Yep.
It's amazing what happens when your defense knows what it's doing. North Carolina still only has 1 loss.
Yep.
I am going to, if they make the ACC championship game, which I think they will, and they'll play Clemson, I might take North Carolina. That's my own fan bias, but what the hell? It'd be fun.
Yeah, I mean, I like what they've done. I tweeted about this. I was very wrong about them. I knew their defense was going to be really bad, and I did not expect Drake May to be this good on offense. Like, that's incredible. They're great.
Drake May's a dog. He's
the dude.
He's a stud. He's an absolute stud. And then there was one other game. Oh, yes, Boston College 21, NC State 20. It's unranked over ranked. Boston College, a program in the wilderness.
Yeah, they are great. It's hard to get out of an O-line hole, man. It's really hard.
Can I ask, and I have one other question, and this will wrap it up here. Is Notre Dame good?
They're getting better. They were just tumultuous early on. I think that the ACC is a pretty bad conference, and they're decent. So
yeah, but I mean, they only beat Navy by 3.
They kind of packed it up in the second half. I don't know how I feel about that. So
I don't know how to read Notre Dame at all. I think I'm a believer in Marcus Freeman. I think he's a good dude. I think he's a good coach.
I think they need an offensive coordinator. They're going to figure that out. Yep.
Not ours though. Damn it. Don't take ours.
Yeah. Okay. Can we do one thing because we promised we were going to do it, and I think it'll be funny. It was the Shad Banks game.
Good, because I was going to go there next. Yes. Let me pull up the depth chart.
I don't want to undersell that, but I'm just going to go by targets and say at receiver, and then we'll go to linebacker. Where's the line? I think about that. Have you seen that joke about like the PETA billboard that's like, it's got a cow and a chicken or whatever. And it's like, where's the line? And someone draws a line between like dog or something and dog, and like right there. That's what we're going to do is we're going to find the line here. Okay.
And so to be clear, because we did not explain this.
Yes.
If the Shad Banks game happened, we were going to go down the Texas A&M roster and say, who would Shad Banks start over at wide receiver? Texas A&M, by the way, will not make a bowl after losing to Auburn, a team that had just fired its head coach. Texas A&M, I can't stress this enough, is paying Jimbo $10 million a year. Okay.
I'm in the wrong line of work.
Yes.
Okay. So starting at wide receiver. Evan Stewart, 91 targets, 12.5 yards per reception. Only two touchdowns.
Here's my thing. Only 3 yards after catch. Shad Banks would fight through that more. I think he starts over Evan Stewart.
The only thing I'm worried about there is Evan Stewart only plays 10.8% in the slot. And I feel like Shad Banks has got to be your big slot guy.
Yeah, fair enough.
For him to be good. Moose Muhammad the third. This has to be fake. If PFF was generating fake names, I would not know at this point about Texas A&M's offense because they've been used so infrequently. 48 targets. He's second. 14.9. 3 touchdowns.
This is Musi Muhammad's son.
Oh,
the former Panthers receiver.
Fun. Okay.
Yeah. This is all name off. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I think this is in the slot. Yeah, give me Moose. I'll take Moose. That's fine.
Yeah. Devon
Chain. Devon Chain, a running back. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the line is going to be right here. So a Chain has 44 targets, 5.4 yards per reception. He's a check down guy as a running back. Anaya Smith, 24 targets, 19.4 yards per reception on an average depth of target of 10 yards downfield. So I don't think that Shad Banks starts over any of them, but you start to get in the doldrums here. Tight end Donovan Green, 19 targets, 1 touchdown. Wide receiver Chris Marshall, 15 targets. Max Wright. Shad Banks would be no worse than the 4th best receiving option on Texas A&M's roster right now. No worse than 4th.
I'm just laughing at something real quick. This is how broke Texas A&M's offense is. Devon Chain, who's a good running back. He averages 5.4 yards per catch. He averages 6.8 yards after catch. So he's like behind, like it's broken, dude. Yeah, it's not good. Good God Almighty, Jimbo.
I'm going really quickly to the defense just to look at the linebackers and look at defensive grades. Can you pull up Shad Banks's defensive grade in the Texas game?
Of course I can. I can't believe we literally got the Shad Banks game.
That's hilarious to me. Grant, we manifested it. Name it, claim it, dude.
Name it, claim it, baby. Okay, Shad.
Don't read it to me. Don't read it to me. Don't read it to me.
Okay.
Oh, dang. Okay, well, it's fine. What is it?
72.2.
Okay. Chris Russell Jr. has the second most snaps of any player for Texas Tech or Texas A&M. He has a 65.7 grade. Edgerrin Cooper has a 66.8 grade. He's the second most involved linebacker. So Shad Banks starting over both
better.
Of them. The third linebacker is 54.7, Andre White Jr.
Better.
And the fifth linebacker is Tyron Lee. He's only played 77 snaps, but he has a 63.4 grade. So better. Shad Banks would be no worse than the 4th best receiver on Texas A&M's roster, and without a doubt, the best linebacker on Texas A&M's roster right now.
Shad Banks is the 3rd highest coverage grade on TCU's defense. I love this season so much.
You don't challenge Shad Banks. Yeah.
You don't come into Shad Banks' house and expect to leave.
This season has been so fun. We're not even talking about the 18-year-old behemoth at nose tackle who's just silently destroying dudes. Just, again, not in the stat line, so we kind of gloss over it. But, like, Dom Williams is amazing, and we're still laughing at, like, there's so many other things to be excited about, too. This is crazy.
I'm just so happy. Parker, this has been the Purple Theory Podcast in conjunction with Frogs Today. My name is Grant McGalliard. You can find me on Twitter at Grant McGalliard. He is on Twitter. He is at Stats of War. Are you plugging anything? What are we doing?
BetUS show on noon Central on Tuesday and Wednesday. Yeah, that's about it. Just doing the same thing. We'll be back here Wednesday to do a Baylor podcast and talk about what good Baylor is and what bad Baylor is, because we don't know which one we're going to see this weekend.
I didn't think I could generate more hate than I did going into the Texas game, but I'm revving up for Saturday. Trust me.
It's going to be great. It's going to be wild. 10-0, man. What a ride.
10-0. Let's do it. Go Frogs.
Go Frogs.